All right, we're recording. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at our roundtable discussion for our Pulp History Mobile exhibit. My name is Candace Cravens, and I am the Assistant Director of the University of South Alabama Archaeology Museum. And I'm really excited to welcome everyone to this discussion from some of our students whose work is exhibited in the museum here. So we have a permanent exhibit gallery here at the museum, and we also do every couple of semesters, a few times a year, we'll do rotating exhibit pieces in our temporary gallery here. They can range on a variety of different topics. We do a lot of work with various community organizations or departments on campus, including the USA's Common Read, Common World program. We'll bring in exhibits that go along with that Common Read in the fall normally. And this exhibit here is really exciting. We're working with Kaleena Stasiak's Printmaking class, and I'm going to go ahead and let her kind of introduce the project before we get going with the discussion here. So,
right. So thank you to Candace for organizing this exhibition and this panel and for the introduction. And thank you to all the students who were kind enough to join us on Zoom. This project was an assignment for my screen printing class. And it was directly inspired by the Paper Monuments Project in New Orleans, which was a public art and public history project designed to elevate the voices of the people who live in New Orleans. And so it came out around the time that they were taking down monuments in the Confederate monuments in New Orleans, and there was all this discussion around what is commemorated or memorialized and what should be. So this group of artists and activists and designers came together and created these posters that they pasted around the city. And it was a critical process in order to create new narratives and symbols for the city of New Orleans and the people that live there, and also to honor the erased histories of people, events, places, and movements that had taken place in the 300 years of history in New Orleans as they looked into the future. So I was really excited about this project when I saw it, and interested in it because in my own work, I look at what histories are being remembered and told, and who is doing the telling, and how these monuments and memorials become sites where identities are formed for nations and states and cities, where these identities are created, where they're performed, and also where they're projected to outsiders through tourism. So I thought it would be a really good project for the University of South Alabama students living in Mobile, because Mobile has a really long history, just like New Orleans, with lots of events and people and places that aren't necessarily commemorated in the monuments and memorials that you see in the city. And also there's a history in printmaking of the poster, because printmaking is this really immediate way to get across a message, to reproduce that message, and then to disseminate it really quickly. So I thought that it would be a good opportunity for students to look at events in Mobile's history that they identified with and wanted to share, and also to tie in that history with printmaking. And then I think you can tell as we go through the different subjects that were chosen that there's a variety of events that were of interest to students that kind of show the diversity of the student body and this younger generation, to show what they find really exciting about Mobile. So that was the general idea.
all right. Well, thank you so much for introducing the project and the exhibit here. And we're going to kind of just go through. We've got some questions to ask each of the students, kind of what inspired them in their projects and making their pieces. And so we're going to kind of introduce each student as we go, and then Kaleena is going to ask some questions. So the first on our list is Madeline McCurdy. And I'm going to go ahead and try to kind of walk us over to the pieces as we go through here. So I'm going to turn it over to Kaleena now.
Right, Maddie. So to just kind of like start things off, I just wondering how you would define a monument or memorial, and what events, people, and places in your experience do you see commemorated or memorialized? And that can be in Mobile or other places.
So I think traditionally we think about, memorials and monuments as maybe like statues or plaques or something like that. But I think it can kind of be anything. I think a lot of people have personal monuments and personal memorials for just really any place that's special to them. So I don't think it needs to be marked by anything. I think it's just more of like a memory than anything else. And I think traditionally we see them like historically as like white men that are being like lifted up for whatever reason or not. But I think it's really good to focus on other people that are memorialized, like the Emmett Hill memorial and things like that. Like, I think the memorials for the smaller people who make big differences are a lot more important. So yeah, I'm not really from Mobile, so I don't know a lot of the Mobile memorials. But traditionally I think of them as people who just made a really big difference, normally military, but just anyone who made a difference in their community for sure.
So what historical moment in Mobile history did you choose to commemorate?
So I did the filming of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I am an enthusiast for like all things alien, all things conspiracy. So when I found out that Steven Spielberg filmed part of Close Encounters of the Third Kind of Mobile, I thought that was insane because I had never heard that before. So basically, like, the reasoning behind it is the movie he did before that was Jaws, and it got so much press release and stuff like that all before it was filmed because they were filming in Hollywood. There were tons of people around. They couldn't really block it off from the public. So he needed a couple of places that were going to be really remote and like just a place that they could disappear. So in Mobile specifically, they used some of the Berkeley Air Force Base hangars because they were huge. They were way bigger than anything Hollywood had to offer. And the budget was only $20 million, which is really, really small for a movie. So they were able to do that and able to kind of keep the movie under wraps before it came out. And I just thought that was so cool because, I don't know, I feel like not a lot of things that famous, get filmed in places that we live. We traditionally think of it as like, oh, California, Hollywood, but it happened in our town. So I think it's super cool.
Yeah, I think one of the really fun parts about this project too was learning little tidbits of like history that nobody had any idea of. So thinking of, Hollywood or Mobile as like this little Hollywood is kind of a funny, and then maybe looking like rewatching the movie and trying to look for it.
Yeah.
Fun. So for my last question, where would you hang this poster in Mobile for maximum impact to like really draw people's attention to it?
When I think about stuff like this, there's a new bar downtown. I don't know what it's called. It's the one of you I'm sure knows. It's pretty new. I think it opened maybe in the fall. It's like the gaming bar. It's right next to Loda Beer Garden. And it's like full of all of these old games and stuff like that. And you can go and play and it's really fun. I think it's called Game Over.
Yeah,
I think. But that would be the perfect place. Or any comic book shop, really. I feel like the groups of people that like what I like really really stick to those places.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie.
All right, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. And we're going to move on to Corey next. Corey Dorsey, if you'd like to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I basically did my thing for small businesses because, like, to me personally, with my dad owning one ever since I was like 5 years old, they like been really important to me because I know the struggles that comes along with it, especially like way back then. My dad being black and everything, he's back when they said came with the territory, there's a lot of struggles and all that came to it, but it got him better. There was times, because my dad like runs a civil engineering company. There was times there was times he tells me there was many times I was the only black guy in the room because I was diversity hire. But he was like, I just showed I was the best one there. And so when they needed work to be done, they always called him. And that's how he started building up. So he always told me like, well, if you're in a situation like that, just be the best one there and always show off. And for like small businesses everywhere, it's tough. It's a struggle. It's tough to struggle at times. It's good years, bad years, and I really think it's really important to moralize those people and remember their struggles, all that stuff. So
Yeah. And I think that that's definitely, like, if you look downtown, all the like small restaurants and shops, they're kind of really what give a city its flavor, rather than like the big business. So yeah, that's like an interesting thing that I feel like you don't really see a memorial for, or a monument.
mhm.
So where would you hang your poster, for maximum impact or for relevancy, to bring it attention to Mobilians?
So that's a tough question for me because I think of many places, but if I had to pick, I would say basically like the government building downtown, 'cause that's where everything basically congregates together. Like it's more than just a lot of other things, like a bunch of things together that's in there. So I would put it never maximum impact
Mhm.
if I had to pick one.
So maybe where people are making like the laws that affect small businesses, things like
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah. And what do you usually see memorialized or monumentalized in either Mobile or other cities?
Well, in Mobile in particular, I see a lot of it's more like patriotic, like soldiers and battles and everything. Which I'd say I do respect. You said all of the people that fought and fell for the country. I appreciate that and everything. But it's very like old patriotic type thing. Like you see the battleship downtown and everything, and see this fort downtown, all that stuff. So it's very like old like patriotic history based, basically.
Hmm. And that might not have, like, I feel like an ode or a monument to small businesses might be like a more interesting idea for people as they're moving into the future, rather than these kind of like nostalgic
Mm-hmm.
figures of soldiers.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, thank you, Corey. We're going to move on to Lauren next. We have some questions for her.
Yeah, so how would you define a monument or memorial, and in your experience, what do you generally see monumentalized or memorialized in Mobile or other cities that you've visited?
Yeah, so I would say that a monument is just something that is special to people, something that's special, whether it's a place or an event. Kind of like what a lot of other people are saying, just about soldiers and patriotic events and people, which is not bad, but it is clear that's obvious, like kind of what the past is. Like a lot more people were dying in huge wars and things. But I loved what Madeline was saying about how um, making monuments and things about like people that weren't as known, people that were maybe seen as little or small, but that had a really big impact. Um, and yeah, so just a lot of historical speakers and presidents and things. But yeah, I would love to see more of people that maybe just weren't as known.
Cool. And so what did you choose to memorialize or monumentalize in your poster, and why did you pick it?
Yes, so I did the Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. That's actually in Mobile. And I chose it because, one, I'm Catholic, and I moved to Mobile a few years ago, and it was one of the first churches that I was able to go to and to attend. But I just think that a lot of people, I mean, we have a lot of people that go to our city, and mainly for restaurants and entertainment, but I feel like a lot of times it's just not as often entered into. You see, yeah, like the outside of the cathedral, but maybe you don't always go into it. So I think that I just wanted to choose it as for my project, just to bring greater awareness to the beauty that resides in the church.
And so where would you hang this poster in Mobile?
Mm-hmm. I would probably hang it in Mobile in just different restaurants and bars, and like the windows and things, just for maximum awareness. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lauren. We're going to move on to Kaylin next. Share a little bit about your piece.
All right, Kaylin. So how would you define a monument or memorial? And in your experience, what do you generally see monumentalized or memorialized?
I would define it, sorry about my cat in advance. I would define it as like basically leaving a mark in history for anybody in the future to remember what was done. Whether it was good or bad is kind of like this way of ensuring that it's not forgotten. But I typically see in like Mobile and other cities, the larger monuments tend to be for, great scientists, medical people, or like military predominantly. But I definitely have seen a lot of smaller ones, but they're ones that you can be overlooked, like they're just on the ground. So.
And so what did you choose to commemorate in your poster?
I chose to do to focus more on the Native Americans from Mobile because I had lived for a little while with my family in Chickasaw, and so when I lived there, I always knew that they had a Native American symbol as their town symbol, and I always thought that was normal until I was taking the Native American art history class. And it kind of like started to open my eyes to things around Mobile and stuff. So I definitely wanted to focus more and talk about, how Chickasaw took its name and who the actual Chickasaw tribe was and is.
Yeah, because I think that, a lot of the people that don't normally get memorialized or commemorated are like people of color or the Native Americans, even though they were here first. I feel like that, that history is not always brought to the forefront. It's always about the Americans or the British or the
Yeah, and Mobile has gone through so much history through the British, the Spanish, the French, and everybody that they got buried in it. And so like I know with my piece, it kind of just showed, that they were here, but then they traveled up north, and then they traveled to Oklahoma during the Trail of Tears. And I was trying to include like the symbol of their nation and all that, so in that way they could be included.
And like the fact that where you lived bears a Native American name, but people forget or don't know why it's called that.
Yeah, and then I also learned at that time that the use of the stereotypical head symbol of a Native American with the feather dress and stuff, like I can't remember right now because it's been a while since I've taken the course, but I know that's like very stereotypical, like that's a man who's won many wars. The Chickasaw, the city, has nothing to do with that. So I was just like commenting on, you forgot how you got your name, where you got your name, and why you're still using it.
And the symbol is a stereotype rather than an accurate representation of the people. So where would you hang your poster?
I would definitely hang it up around the city of Chickasaw, but I would hang it up around Mobile too if I had to do more. But definitely this would go like in Chickasaw City Hall and like Welcome Center.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I really like the addition of this piece in particular with the exhibit, because as an archaeology museum, based in anthropology, so the study of people. That is the study of all people, all cultures through time. And what archaeology does is really try to tell the stories of people that often get misrepresented or stereotyped. And so I really feel adding in these different pieces, these different perspectives is really important to, you know, be sharing with the community and to let folks know how relevant archaeology is to the present day as well. So thanks for that addition there.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to Mary next. Share a little bit about you, please.
Hi, Mary. I'm Mary. I did mine on the Church Street graveyard. It's about a guy. He was a African American man who got in trouble for stealing from this man, and this rich man was found dead, and so he was hung in the street. He was killed, and to prove his innocence, he ate a oak tree seed, and so that when he was buried in the Church Street graveyard, the big oak tree came to life. So it was just symbolizing his innocence, and I don't know, just like I wanted to do that because Church Street is very popular in Mobile, and there's a lot of business and stuff.
And so the tree being this memorial for that man.
Yeah.
So what do you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying I thought that was a big deal because racism back then was a very big deal in the South, and he could have easily like snarled back at these people for accusing him, but instead he ate an oak seed and made this tree that is still alive today remember him as the real innocent person that he really was. And so yeah.
So as kind of this memorial to injustices and the racism that was predominant, especially like with the lynchings and everything that took place. And so what do you generally see, like either in Mobile or elsewhere, being commemorated or monumentalized?
Wait, can you repeat it again? I'm sorry, I couldn't.
What do you usually see, like if when you look at monuments, what is usually monumentalized or memorialized?
I feel like Mardi Gras is a very important in Mobile, so there's lots of statues, like Joe Kane and a bunch of other people from those times.
But you don't see a lot relating to like that important moment in history that you're interested in?
I haven't seen a lot, even though I'm from Mobile, I haven't seen a lot of other monuments, but.
And so where would you hang your poster in the city?
I would almost want to like create this frame and like have it on the tree somehow, like showing like a story about it, because I don't think there really is. It's just like a spooky myth of the South, but it's a true story. If you look it up, he was proved innocent like 20 years later. And so I would put it over Church Street or even on the Church Street sign, street sign.
Cool. Yeah, I think that there was another poster about the yellow fever epidemic, because a lot of in the Church Street graveyard by Natalie, who unfortunately wasn't able to make it. But so yeah, there's a lot of interesting stories surrounding the Church Street graveyard. Cool, thank you.
All right, thanks. We're gonna move on to Erin next.
Hello.
Hi, Erin.
Hi.
So what do you generally see memorialized or commemorated either in Mobile or elsewhere?
Generally, what I see commemorated is like acts of grandeur, I'd say, like war, patriotism. People who acclaim fame often get memorialized in some fashion. And as for what I consider memorials, I think it's way broader than just a statue of a war hero or a memorial to a great speaker such as Martin Luther King or Gandhi. I think architecture can be a memorial, such as historical architecture, like the Joe Kane House. It's a piece of history that had an impact on culture. I think a tree can be a memorial if it's old and has culture. It's just, if something has a history or a weight to it and can be recognized for that weight, it can be a memorial. It doesn't need a plaque to be a memorial.
Cool. So what did you choose to commemorate?
So I chose to commemorate the Azalea Trail Maids as an organization because they've been an integral group in Mobile for about 70 years now. And I assume that people who aren't from Mobile don't know anything about them and will usually attribute like negative stereotypes to the Azalea Trail Maids because of their antebellum dress. And sure, in the beginning, it was segregated because it was started in the height of segregation in the 50s. Nowadays, the organization is way more than the sum of its parts. It was started as part of the Azalea Trail, which was made to beautify the city of Mobile, and it became sort of a pageant thing for Mobile high schools. And I went to high school with multiple Azalea Trail Maids, and nowadays it's way more diverse. It welcomes all manner of ethnicities into it, and there's still a little behind in some respects, but I think they represent Mobile's history accurately, as in, yes, we had the history. We used to be part of that history of plantations and antebellum and slavery. And this, we're not erasing our history through them, but we are bringing things to the modern day and putting things in a new light, if that makes sense. So I'm not representing just a single person here, but the group as a whole has deeply affected the culture of Mobile as they've become, the ambassadors of Mobile. They're sent to special events to represent our city.
So you see
yeah.
the Trail Maids as kind of like a symbol of Mobile, that they were
yes.
this kind of like backward antebellum, like nostalgia.
Yeah.
But now they have like kind of moved into the 21st century because of
yes.
diversity and the evolution.
Yes, and they give a lot of high schoolers opportunities. They give scholarship opportunities, I believe, and they may be a pageant, but it's a very elite group. You have to have very good grades to be a part of it. And I think the credentials to be a part of it represent good on the people in it. It's just, they're here, but the organization itself is a monument, in my opinion. The fact that they have just those very iconic dresses, and yeah.
So where would you hang your poster?
I'd probably hang it around like high schools as well as around the Azalea Trail to, put a little more perspective behind the history. My poster doesn't go extremely into detail about their history because I wanted it to be legible, but a lot of people don't seem to realize the group is way younger than you think. In terms of, you see an antebellum dress, you think, pre-industrial, but they're less than a century old. They're, in terms of groups, they're not that old. And I wanted to bring light that, hey, they're not that old of a group, and there's some, the baggage with the dress isn't the point.
Thanks, Erin.
So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Erin. I often run into the trail maids. They like to make appearances at a lot of local races in town. We see them every year at the Azalea Trail Run. So I've always me being not from Mobile, and I hadn't. It's really great that she brought up some of the history behind the organization, but I always just look at them now as just representatives of the city of Mobile. They're here to be like ambassadors for the city, that sort of thing. And I do see them quite often on the sidelines cheering everybody on.
Yeah,
that's
they're a living monument to the history of Mobile.
Yes. Baldwin County has a version too. I remember what they're called off the top of my head.
It's probably a part of the Junior Miss program, which the American Trail Maids, they're an offshoot of the Azalea Trail Maids, because they used to have over 300 groups be a part of them, but it was too much for them, so they actually split off to smaller groups. But all of them harken back to the Azalea Trail Maids.
Thanks for that extra info. And I think we've got one more to share, ask a few questions, and then I think as a group we might, if we have any more things we'd like to discuss or touch on as a whole. But Tanner Bird, you're up next.
Hello.
Hi.
So how would you define a monument or memorial, and what do you generally see commemorated in these monuments and memorials?
In my opinion, a monument or a memorial is just something to remember either a person, event, or a time. So when I think of monuments and memorials, I think a lot of statues and things, but then I also think about here in Mobile, the old houses, so a lot of the architecture and whatnot. So the one that immediately comes to mind is the mansion. So because that was the families, the Bragg Mitchell's families, so they had a plantation, but in the social season they would come to their mansion. So that would be, I believe, towards the end of Thanksgiving and all the way through Mardi Gras to the end. So I just think of things like that. And I don't necessarily think that monuments and memorials are strictly positive or negative. I think some of them can have a bit of a middling ground. So they can be either or, really. It just depends.
And what did you decide to commemorate in your poster?
What I decided to commemorate was the Wolf Woman of Mobile. So, and I see a lot of very serious things, like when you go downtown and you see all these very serious monuments and all this like elaborate architecture, and it's like, I don't want to do anything too serious, because there's also a lot of really weird stuff that goes on everywhere. And an odd time, and I think it only happened in the span of a week in Mobile in 1971, because there was an alleged sighting of a half wolf, half woman creature, and it was like people called the police station saying, we saw the wolf woman. And so they had over 50 phone calls saying that people had seen her, and people were locking their doors and making sure all their windows were bolted, and it was very odd. And an illustrator for the Mobile Press Register illustrated the woman based on a description, and it's such an odd illustration because it's like she has the bottom half of a wolf, the top half of a lady, but she's very manicured. So she has this really long, very stylized hair, very 1970s. She looks a little like Lana Del Rey. It's quite odd. False eyelashes. It's really weird. And I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to commemorate.
Yeah, I think the folklore aspect, you know, there are these like actual records of the wolf woman, but it's not, you know, nobody knows if it's true or not. I think that's like a funny thing to commemorate, is just like these tales that get passed down. Because in a way, like a lot of history is like that too. They are like stories that get passed down, and some of it is embellished as it goes along. But that this wolf woman is, you know, it's very crazy and unbelievable. But then, yeah, the way that she's portrayed in the newspaper and how you've portrayed her, she's very well like manicured and coiffed, which obviously a wolf woman, we assume, wouldn't be. And yeah, I think that's like, folklore is a really like interesting part of the like cultural fabric of a place. So it's interesting to include that. Where would you hang your poster?
I thought about this, and I think I'd want to hang it in the Mobile Welcome Center. So, because you see all these other things advertised, like you see like the Bragg Mitchell Mansion, the Mardi Gras Museum being advertised, the different forts being advertised here, and the Archaeology Museum, different things like that that are very, very serious. And then you look over and you see this poster, and it's like, well, what's the Wolf Woman of Mobile? I didn't even know we had wolves down here, which we don't. There are no wolves down here. So, which makes it even more bizarre. So, something like that, something to contrast the seriousness.
A little bit of comic relief to the weight of the history of everything else.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for sharing a little bit about your pieces here. I know we didn't cover all of the pieces in the exhibit, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of open it up. Kaleena, do you think there are anything else you want to kind of discuss or put out to the group, and kind of open it up for a more informal discussion, or just kind of wrap things up?
Well, I definitely think this is a project, because I've done it with 2 classes now, that I would like to keep doing in the future, because I think we've done about 19 posters, but I think that it just keeps opening up, like, and the more stories that people do, like the deeper people need to dig to get more stories. So I think, like, you know, continuing this project and expanding it it'll keep getting more and more interesting the more stories that come out. And I think it was the perfect place to have the exhibition in the Archaeology Museum, because you can just head next door and actually take a look at the history of Mobile, from starting with the Native Americans, or it starts even before that, right? All the way up to present day.
Yeah. So I was really excited when we had the chance to put this up in this space, because it just made a lot of sense to me to have it in our space, you know, given our subject matter. So it's really been great having it up. I know no one has gotten to see it yet. I really hope we get the chance to have people come in at some point. But yeah, I'd love to have even more pieces in here if we had the room for it. But it really looks awesome. And we have a virtual gallery up on our website. So if you go to southalabama.edu and find the museum, it's really hard to get email out, or the web addresses are so long, but look for the museum. We have a current event, or we do have a current events tab, as well as a current exhibits tab. So you can go in that tab there and pull up the exhibit, and it has all of the pieces that are in the exhibit in a virtual gallery. So you can click on them, and they zoom up pretty nice size there, so you can kind of see that, as well as the description of the exhibit as a whole. And as of right now, we're going to have this up through our initial plan was to have it up through the end of August, like right before the start of the fall semester. But given how things are going, maybe hoping that we can extend it into the fall a little bit longer to give people a chance to come see it, and maybe do the closing reception since we weren't able to do an opening. And that way we can celebrate all of your work a little bit more, because I know you worked really hard on these. So stay tuned to our Facebook or our website for that information. And I did make a short video, well, again, with a cell phone before everything kind of closed down. And I have that posted on our Facebook page as well. You can kind of see a little bit better than I did today, which is kind of like holding my computer screen up if you want to check that out too. So I think that's all I had. What about you, Kaleena?
Thanks everyone for joining. It was awesome to hear about your posters. And I think it'll be good for people who aren't able to come see the exhibit, learn a little bit more about the project and what you guys had in mind. Hopefully we'll all see each other soon.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to meet all of you virtually. I can't wait to see everyone in person. If you have the chance, and if you don't get to see you, just come over and say hi or something. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much. Bye.